At 2 a.m., my brother swiped my debit card while I slept by sunrise. Everything was gone. He blew $9,000 on toys and gadgets, and Mom called it no big deal, but neither of them realized the account he emptied was about to change both their lives forever. I was never the kind of person who thought revenge was worth the energy. I always figured karma would take care of things in the end and that holding on to anger would just eat away at me. But let me tell you something. There's a special kind of fury that burns in your chest when someone you trusted, someone you literally shared a roof with your whole life, takes everything you've worked for, and your own mother looks you dead in the eye and tells you it doesn't matter. My name's Aiden. I'm 24. And up until a few months ago, I still lived at home. Not because I was lazy or aimless, but because it made financial sense. I worked remotely as a freelance UI/UX designer, stacked cash like a maniac, and set a goal. Save enough to launch my own design studio by the time I hit 25. I lived modestly, didn't party, didn't blow money on dumb stuff, just worked, saved, repeated, and it was working. I'd built up close to $15,000 in savings, kept in a separate checking account I never touched unless it was for studio expenses. The card for that account stayed in my desk drawer tucked behind an old hard drive. It wasn't even in my wallet. That's how little I used it. Now here's where things start to get weird. My younger brother, Zach, just turned 17. He's the complete opposite of me. Loud, impulsive, obsessed with clout and appearances. He talks like a TikTok comment section, calls everything mid, and somehow thinks he's going to be a famous streamer, despite never streaming anything for more than 20 minutes. Our relationship was rocky even before all this. Not because I hated him or anything, but because every time I tried to be the responsible older brother, I got labeled as controlling or uptight. It's like my whole family had this unspoken rule. Zach messes up. We all smile and move on. Aiden gets frustrated about it. He's ruining the mood. For example, last Christmas, Zach threw a fit because he didn't get the exact model of gaming headset he wanted. I'm talking full-blown meltdown, yelling, slamming his door, refusing to come to dinner. My mom, in the middle of carving the turkey, gave me this tired look and said, "Just let him have your pair, Aiden. You don't even gain that much." And stupidly I did, because it wasn't worth the fight, because it was Christmas. Because that's how it always went. But things didn't really start to unravel until earlier this summer. It was a small moment, almost forgettable on its own. But looking back, it was the first real hint that something wasn't right. I was in the kitchen after a long client call, reheating some leftovers, when Zach strolled in wearing a pair of Yeezys. Brand new, still crisp. He didn't even bother to remove the tag from the laces. "Where do you get those?" I asked, casually, genuinely curious. He smirked. "Online," I raised an eyebrow. "With what money?" He shrugged. "I've got ways." Now let me be clear. Zach didn't have a job. He'd started and quit 3 part-time gigs in the last year, always with some dramatic excuse. His bank account, last I checked, had about $200 in it, so either he was selling organs on the dark web or someone was bankrolling him, and I had a sinking feeling I knew who. Later that night, I asked my mom if she gave Zach money for the shoes. She barely looked up from her tablet. No. Why he bought Yeezys. She just gave a little laugh and waved her hand. Boys and their sneakers. Let him enjoy himself, right? But how did he pay for them? She sighed like I was being ridiculous. "Aiden, not everything needs an investigation. He probably used Afterpay or CLA or whatever these kids use now." Relax. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But something in her tone, the way she dismissed me so quickly, itched at the back of my mind. It was the same tone she used anytime Zach messed up. Defensive, protective, as if acknowledging his flaws would mean admitting she failed as a parent. Still, I let it go, or at least I tried to. Then came the next red flag. A week later, I noticed my external hard drive was slightly out of place. It sounds stupid, I know, but I'm a meticulous person. I organized my desk like it's a command center. That drawer was always closed flush. That hard drive was always aligned to the left, but now it was pushed forward slightly, as if someone had opened the drawer too fast and knocked it out of position. I opened it. My debit card was gone. At first, I panicked, tore through my room, checked my wallet, laptop bag, jacket pockets, even the trash. Nothing. And then the dread hit me. I opened my banking app, typed in the credentials for my studio account, and froze. Balance $6,021.34. $6,000 gone. I scrolled through the transaction history, and each line made my stomach churn harder than the last. $1,300. Apple Store, $600. Supreme, $500. PlayStation, Direct, and on and on. Almost every purchase made between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. the night before. I felt like I was watching a horror movie unfold in slow motion. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I knew was that someone had stolen my card, drained nearly 10 grand from an account I'd been building for years, and didn't even have the decency to cover their tracks. My first instinct was to call the bank and freeze the card, which I did. Then I took a few minutes to pace around my room trying to wrap my head around what to do next. And then I heard laughter from downstairs. I walked out of my room down the hallway and paused at the top of the stairs. Zach was in the living room, surrounded by boxes. A new PS5 sat on the table. Fresh sneakers lined the floor. An unopened iPhone lay in his lap, and my mom was standing behind him with a proud smile on her face saying, "Wow, you really made out like a bandit this week, huh?" That was the moment something snapped in me, but I didn't yell. I didn't storm in. I didn't say a word. I just walked down the stairs, slowly, one step at a time, until I stood in the doorway like a ghost. Zach looked up mid-laugh and the color drained from his face. My mom turned to me and said, "Aiden, what's wrong?" I looked at Zach. I looked at her. Then I said in the calmest voice I could muster, "Where's my debit card?" And that's when everything started to unravel. She blinked as if I'd just spoken in a foreign language. "What do you mean, your debit card?" "My studio account debit card. The one I kept locked in my desk drawer. The one that suddenly went missing. The one someone used to blow nearly $9,000 overnight." I didn't raise my voice. If anything, it came out quieter than I expected, but it wasn't calm. It was cold. Zach stood up quickly, almost knocking over the PS5 box beside him. "Bro, chill. What are you even talking about, that fake innocence?" The lazy attempt at acting like he didn't know what I meant. I'd seen it before so many times when he broke my laptop in high school and blamed the cat. When he racked up a phone bill using international calls and said it must have been spam. Every time he got caught, he pulled that same wide-eyed expression like a kid who just learned fire is hot. And every time my mom ate it up like gospel. But this time I wasn't giving him a single inch. I walked over to the PS5 and flipped the box. The shipping label was still attached. Ordered at 2:41 a.m. Shipped to our address under the name Zach Miller. His face went pale. My mom looked from him to me, lips parting slightly. "Aiden, I'm sure there's some mistake." I locked eyes with her. "There is. The mistake is thinking I wouldn't notice nearly 10 grand vanishing overnight." She folded her arms. That defensive posture I'd seen way too many times. You can't prove it was him. I turned my phone around and showed her the app. Every charge was made between 2 and 5 a.m. from this house on websites he uses. Using my card, Zach stammered, I didn't even know your PIN, man. I never said the card was a debit with a PIN. It's a Visa. I use it online. No PIN needed." He flinched. My mom looked like she'd been slapped. For a few seconds, the room went completely still. The kind of still that doesn't last long, that always cracks under the weight of denial. And sure enough, she cracked. "Oh, for heaven's sake, Aiden, he's 17. Do you really think he understands what he did?" I stared at her. Yes. He had to sift through my drawers, find the card, memorize the number, go online, and go shopping. That's not an accident. That's not a mistake. That's calculated theft. Zach jumped in louder now. "I thought it was your extra card, the one you use for games and stuff. I don't have an extra card," I said slowly. "You knew what you were doing." My mom's voice rose. "Aiden, enough. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's not like he hurt anyone." I just stared at her, trying to process the absurdity. Not like he hurt anyone. "You don't think stealing $9,000 from me hurts?" My voice cracked. I didn't even try to hide it. That account was for my business. That's the money I've been saving for years, for my future. She gave me a dismissive wave like I was being dramatic. "You're always so serious. It's just money. You're good with computers. You'll make it back." Not the point, I said through gritted teeth. But it didn't matter. It never mattered because in this house, Zach's comfort always came first. Always. And for the first time in my life, I felt it in my bones. This wasn't just favoritism. This was willful blindness. My dad wasn't around. Hasn't been for years. When I was 13, he walked out without saying goodbye. Left us with a mortgage, a used minivan, and a broken dining chair that still cakes whenever someone leans back in it. Mom did what she had to do. I get that. She worked 2 jobs for a while, cried when she didn't think we could hear her. And for years, I tried to make it easier. I took on more, helped with Zach cooked dinner when she worked late, even skipped college to freelance so we wouldn't drown in debt. But somewhere along the way, the narrative flipped. I wasn't the helpful older son anymore. I became the rigid one, the uptight one, the one who didn't understand Zach's creative spirit. And Zach, he became her little redemption story, the second chance, the baby who needed protection from the harshness of the world, including me. I backed away from them, both walked upstairs without another word. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't crying. Not yet. I just felt hollow. I locked my door, flopped into my desk chair, and sat in silence. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I could hear them downstairs laughing. I opened my banking app again. Total damage, $8,93,467. I emailed the bank's fraud department, marked each charge as unauthorized, wrote out a full report, attached screenshots. I knew there was a chance I'd get the money back, but that would take weeks, maybe months. In the meantime, my studio launch delayed, my rent savings gutted, my trust in my family shattered. Around midnight, I heard a soft knock at the door. It opened before I could respond. Mom stepped in holding a small plate of cookies like I was a child she was bribing after a tantrum. "I baked your favorite," she said softly. "Double chocolate chip." I didn't say anything. She set the plate down on my dresser. "Look, I know you're upset, but this isn't worth tearing the family apart over." That's when I snapped. "Tearing the family apart," I repeated. "He stole from me. You defended him. And I'm the one tearing the family apart." She winced. "I'm just trying to keep the peace." I stood up slowly. Keeping the peace doesn't mean ignoring a felony. Keeping the peace means holding people accountable. He's almost a legal adult. If I did something like this at 17, you'd have dragged me to the police station yourself. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I can't believe you think this is okay," I continued. "You didn't even make him return anything. He's downstairs right now setting up a PS5 with my money like it's a Christmas gift." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her voice when it came was defensive and small. "He's just been going through a rough patch. We've all gone through rough patches, Mom. I didn't rob my brother to cope." She looked down at her shoes. "He promised he'd pay you back with what his imaginary Twitch donations." She didn't answer. I sat back down, shaking my head. "You're not even going to punish him, are you, Silence?" "I'm filing a police report," I said flatly. She snapped her head up. "What? No. No, you are not." "I am. This isn't just a family issue. It's theft. You can't do that to your own brother." "He's just a kid. He's a thief," I said. "And if you're not going to hold him accountable, I will." And then her mask cracked. Her voice dropped to a low, venomous hiss I'd never heard before. "If you go to the police," she said, "you'll regret it." That stopped me cold. Is that a threat? Her eyes widened slightly as if she surprised even herself. But then she doubled down. "Think about it, Aiden. If you make this public, what do you think will happen to me? To our family? You think I can afford a lawyer? You think people won't judge me for raising a criminal?" I stared at her. "So your concern is your reputation, not the fact that your son robbed me blind." Her face hardened. "You always think you're better than us, that you're smarter, more mature, but you're not. You're just a boy with a laptop and a superiority complex." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was insane. "You know what I said? Get out of my room. I raised you. Get out." She slammed the door behind her. And that was the moment. The exact second everything changed. Not when I saw the missing money, not even when Zach smirked at me from the couch. It was that look in her eyes, that bitterness, that resentment. It wasn't just that she defended Zach. It was that deep down she resented me for being the adult in the house. I barely slept that night, just stared at the ceiling, listening to muffled laughter from downstairs. The smell of microwaved popcorn drifted under my door. My heartbeat was so loud it sounded like footsteps. Around 4 a.m., I checked the last email I'd received. The bank had already flagged several charges. A fraud investigator would follow up in the next 3 to 5 business days. I closed my laptop, and that's when I decided if my family didn't want to hold Zach accountable, I'd do it myself. The revenge wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be explosive. It wouldn't be a scream in the middle of the living room. It would be slow, precise, ruthless, because I'd spent 24 years building quietly, and they had no idea who they just pushed over the edge. The next morning was quieter than usual. No Zach stomping down the hallway yelling into his headset. No mom yelling after him to eat breakfast before he games. The house felt off. Not peaceful, just weird. Like everyone was waiting for someone else to make the first move. And that someone was me. I didn't come out of my room for hours. I wasn't sulking. I wasn't hiding. I was planning. I'd already filed the police report online that morning just after sunrise. Typed it out, carefully detailed every charge, every timestamp, every item I could trace back to Zach. I attached screenshots, even uploaded a photo I took of the PS5 and sneaker boxes from the night before. The total came to $8,934.67. Fraudulent charges to my business account, filed under identity theft and unauthorized use of a debit card. I submitted the report, saved the confirmation code, and sat back in my chair. Then I stared at the wall for a long time. It's a strange feeling hitting a breaking point in your own house. It's not loud. It doesn't look like a movie scene with doors slamming and glass shattering. It's a quiet kind of devastation. A cold realization that the people you counted on most have no problem watching you fall as long as it keeps them comfortable. Around noon, I opened my door. My mom was in the kitchen, texting one-handed while stirring something in a pot. She looked up, eyes searching my face, then immediately turned away when she saw I wasn't going to speak. Zach was on the couch in the living room, hoodie up, controller in hand, new headphones over his ears. He didn't even glance at me. I poured a glass of water, drank it slowly, and walked right back to my room. The police called later that evening. The officer on the phone was polite but firm, said he'd reviewed my report and confirmed the purchases matched the IP address registered to our house. He asked if I knew who the perpetrator was. I paused, my stomach twisted. Then I said, "Yes, my younger brother. He's 17. Means? There was a beat of silence. Then the officer asked if I was pressing charges or simply filing for documentation. That was the moment. The moment where I could have walked it back, could have said, no, it's a family matter. Could have protected the same people who let this happen, but I didn't. I'm pressing charges, I said. My voice didn't shake. He thanked me, told me someone would be in touch, and that the investigation would proceed accordingly. I hung up, then turned off my phone. I didn't want to deal with the fallout right away. I knew it was coming, knew it would be nuclear, but for now, I wanted peace. That night, I didn't sleep again, but I wasn't lying awake in shock this time. I was calculating. The next morning, the first bomb dropped. I walked into the kitchen to grab coffee, and my mom was already pacing with her phone in her hand. "You filed the police report," she yelled before I even made it to the sink. I didn't respond. "They called me this morning, said they're investigating my son, your brother." Still silent, I poured the coffee. "You're seriously going to ruin his life over some sneakers and a stupid PlayStation?" I finally turned to look at her. He already ruined something. My trust, my plans, my savings. Why does his life matter more than mine? "He's a child, Aiden. He's a thief," I said flatly. "And if this family won't hold him accountable, someone has to." Her expression morphed into something I hadn't seen before. Not just disappointment. Hatred. "You're not welcome here anymore." There it was. The moment I officially became the villain in my own home. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just nodded. And within 2 hours, I had packed 2 duffel bags, grabbed my work gear, and walked out. No goodbye from Zach, no apology, no offer to help. My mom stood with her arms crossed at the top of the stairs like she was watching a stranger leave. I slept in my car that night. It was mid-June, sticky and uncomfortable. I parked in a quiet grocery store lot a few towns over, angled the seat back, and stared at the ceiling. My neck ached. My back throbbed. But weirdly, I felt lighter. There's a strange freedom in having nothing left to lose. The next day, I texted an old friend from high school, Dylan. We hadn't talked much since graduation, but I remembered him posting about having a basement unit he was trying to rent out. I didn't expect him to say yes. I just asked if it was still available, and if I could crash for a few days while I figured stuff out. To my surprise, he said yes without hesitation. 2 hours later, I was hauling my bags into a dim little basement apartment with exposed pipes, a mattress on the floor, and a single window that looked out on as someone's tire. It smelled like old carpet and laundry detergent, but it had a lock and it wasn't my car. "First week's free," Dylan said. "After that, just give me whatever you can until you're on your feet." I almost cried, but I didn't. I just said thank you. And so began the slow rebuild. I started working double shifts, taking on more freelance gigs than I thought I could handle. I redesigned a dental website, ran UX audits for 2 e-commerce stores, and even coded an entire mobile prototype for a startup in Berlin. I worked from Dylan's kitchen table, from coffee shops, even from the back of my car when the Wi-Fi was better in town. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The bank investigation took a few weeks. Eventually, they refunded about 80% of the stolen money. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to breathe again. Meanwhile, the police case against Zach was quietly moving forward. Since he was a minor, the process was slower and more delicate. I got a few follow-up calls. They asked if I had more documentation. I sent them emails, screenshots, invoices, the works. I didn't hear anything from my family during that time. Not a word, but I started to hear things about them. One night, Dylan came home from a grocery run and said, "Hey, I think I saw your brother at the Apple store today." He was arguing with the staff about a locked iPhone. Kept saying it was a gift. Looked pretty heated. I nodded. Didn't say anything. 2 days later, I got a DM on Instagram from an old neighbor. It read, "Hey Aiden, just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything that happened with your brother. Heard about the whole situation. You didn't deserve that." Word was spreading, and for once I didn't feel ashamed. I wasn't the problem. I wasn't the one who stole or lied or looked the other way. I was the one who finally said enough. About a month after I moved into Dylan's place, something unexpected happened. I got an email from a company I'd pitched to a year ago. One of those will keep your portfolio on file brush-offs. They said they'd recently seen my work again. Turns out one of my client redesigns had gone semi-viral in a design subreddit, and they wanted to bring me on as a contractor for a 6-month project. The rate, $5,000 per month. Remote full creative control. I sat there staring at the email, rereading it over and over. Then I burst out laughing. It was the first time I'd laughed in weeks. That contract was a game changer. It let me pay Dylan proper rent. It let me upgrade my workspace, and slowly I started building again, not just the business, but myself. I joined a local startup networking group. I began mentoring junior designers online. I rebuilt my website from scratch and launched a small digital product UI templates for freelancers. It sold better than I expected. I started feeling proud of my work again, of myself. There were nights I still thought about my family. Nights I imagined walking through the front door again, demanding answers, closure, something. But every time I played it out in my head, it always ended the same way. Silence, denial, deflection. So I let it go mostly. Then one afternoon, about 2 months after I moved out, I got a letter, not an email, a real letter, handwritten. The envelope was smudged and slightly torn. It was from my mom. The note was short, just a few lines. Aiden, I hope you're okay. I miss you. I didn't know how to handle everything, and I realize now I failed both of you in different ways. I'm sorry I didn't protect you when I should have. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I read it 4 times. Then I folded it up, slid it into my drawer, and didn't respond. Not yet. Because as much as I wanted to believe she meant it, I needed more than sorry. I needed to know that things had changed, that she had changed, that Zach had changed, and I didn't believe that yet. But something in that letter stirred a thought. What if they hadn't just wronged me financially? What if they'd been hiding more than just favoritism? Because I'd heard a rumor, one that wouldn't leave my head. A rumor about where Zach got the idea to steal my card in the first place. And when I looked closer, when I started connecting dots I'd ignored for years, I realized the theft wasn't spontaneous. It was orchestrated, and the truth behind it would change everything. The letter sat in my drawer for a week before I picked it up again. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe that I'd reread it and feel something warm, some spark of reconciliation. Instead, I felt a chill. Something about the way it was written felt off, not just the sudden shift in tone, but the timing. Why now? Why send this weeks after going full scorched earth on me? Why not text, call, or show up? She knew where I worked. She knew where Dylan lived. She hadn't lifted a finger since the day I left. Now suddenly she missed me. I turned the letter over in my hand. Something felt rehearsed, like it was written for the record, not from the heart. It got worse when I checked the envelope again. At the bottom corner, scribbled faintly in pencil, was a short note, clearly added after the fact. Zach doesn't know I'm writing this. Please don't mention it. And just like that, the pieces started falling into place. I couldn't stop thinking about what Dylan had said, that he'd seen Zach at the Apple store fighting to unlock a phone, and that Instagram DM from the neighbor. Plus another message I hadn't thought much of at the time from my cousin Lauren weeks ago, just after I filed the police report. Hey, weird question. Did you buy Zach an iPhone for his birthday? He said it was from you, but it seemed off back then. I hadn't had the energy to answer. Now that message lit up like a signal flare in my memory. Zach told multiple people that I had bought him a phone. Why? Why go out of his way to lie like that? Unless he wanted people to believe I gave him permission to create a paper trail of defense. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. The theft wasn't just impulsive, it was calculated, planned, which meant he probably didn't act alone. So I started digging. I didn't have access to the old house Wi-Fi or the router logs. And the police wouldn't share details of an ongoing juvenile case, but I still had one asset they didn't. The receipts, literal ones from his purchases. I'd saved screenshots of the confirmation emails when I filed the fraud report, and they were all tied to an email I didn't recognize, miller92shop@outlook.com. That domain didn't match Zach's usual email. He had one of those obnoxious gamer handles like Zach the Beast for everything. So I copied the email and checked if it was linked to any public accounts. It was. He'd used that Outlook account to register on a sneaker resale forum called Luxdrop, a shady, high markup marketplace full of resellers, scalpers, and hype beasts trying to flip designer shoes at a profit. I logged in using the forgot password trick and guessed that he might have reused one of his old favorites. After a few tries, boom, access. The inbox was full of order confirmations, return requests, and tracking numbers. Most of them were placed between 2 o'clock and 4:30 a.m. on the same night my card was drained. But something caught my eye. An email thread titled, "Need help moving a few items fast. Mom said you'd help." The sender, Karam_Miller@outlook.com. My mother's email. I clicked. The first message was from Zach. "Hey, Just got the stuff. Mom said you could help me list a few things and flip them fast. Got some Yeezys Jordan ones and the PS5. Want to keep the iPhone though, lol. Then my mom's reply, keep it low profile. Don't list too much at once. If anyone asks, say you used your savings and got help from your big brother as a graduation gift. And there it was, the nail in the coffin. She didn't just excuse his behavior. She didn't just ignore it. She helped him cover it up. Every flash of guilt I thought I saw in that letter gone. That wasn't guilt. That was strategy. She was scared. Scared that I'd keep digging. Scared the case might move forward. Scared that her good kid narrative was falling apart. And she was right to be scared because now I had everything I needed. The plan formed slowly over a couple of days. I didn't want an explosion. I wanted precision. I wanted control. And most of all, I wanted them to understand exactly what they'd lost. The first step was gathering my allies. I reached out to Lauren, my cousin, the one who'd asked about the iPhone. We hadn't talked in a while, but she'd always been decent to me growing up. The kind of cousin who never picked sides during family drama, who stayed out of it but didn't pretend not to notice. I sent her a message asking if we could talk. Told her I needed to clear something up about Zach. She replied almost instantly, absolutely. I've been waiting for you to say something. We met at a little diner just outside town. She slid into the booth, eyes wide. Okay, what actually happened? She asked. Because Zach's story keeps changing. I told her everything, from the card theft to the purchases to the fake graduation gift lie. I even showed her the emails I'd recovered. She didn't look surprised. I knew something was off, she said. At Grandpa's birthday last month, he kept saying you were hooking him up with gear because you felt bad for being so hard on him. He had this whole soba story about how you finally made peace and wanted to help him get into streaming. I nearly choked on my water. He said, what? Yeah, she said. And your mom was sitting right next to him, smiling, nodding. That confirmed it. It wasn't just a cover-up. It was a coordinated PR campaign inside the family. I asked if she'd be willing to talk to the investigator on my case, maybe submit a statement. She didn't hesitate. Absolutely. You're not crazy, Aiden. Everyone sees what's happening. We've just been trained not to talk about it. I thanked her. Then I called Dylan, told him everything. He was quiet at first. Then he asked, what do you want to do? And I knew my answer instantly. I want them to feel it. The loss, the silence, the shame. I want them to sit in the mess they made. And that's when Dylan gave me the final piece. You ever think about telling your story? Like publicly what? Like post it online. Why not? People need to hear stuff like this. Family favoritism, financial abuse. It's real. It happens. I chewed on that. Could I? Should I? Would it feel petty or would it be justice? Over the next week, I started writing not just a Reddit post or a Twitter thread. I wrote an article, a full, thoughtful breakdown of what happened. I called it When Your Family Chooses the Thief Over You, a cautionary tale about enabling an entitlement. I didn't name names, no addresses, no slander, just facts, screenshots of transactions, the fake email trail, the shoe reselling, cover up the police report confirmation, my cousin's statement, even a blurred image of the PS5 and sneakers piled on the living room floor. I ended it with a message that wasn't angry but clear. The people who should protect you the most sometimes won't. And when that happens, it's not betrayal to walk away, it's survival. I published it on Medium. Dylan helped me cross-ost it on Reddit, Twitter, and a few design freelancer forums. We added tags for financial abuse, family dynamics, and fraud. Within 48 hours, it went viral. Tens of thousands of views, hundreds of comments, emails from strangers sharing similar stories, even a few offers from podcasts asking if I'd be willing to speak about it. I didn't respond to those. Not yet. This wasn't about fame. But then something happened that shook me to my core. I got a call from the detective assigned to my case. Aiden, he said something's come up. Your mother just contacted us. My pulse spiked. She's trying to recant a previous statement. Says the purchases were a misunderstanding, that she was involved and doesn't want to press charges against Zach. She's asking for the case to be dropped. I closed my eyes. What happens if she does that, I asked. Well, it complicates things. But the case was filed under your name. You're the victim, so it's still active. But it's clear they're starting to panic. I thanked him and hung up. They weren't just scared of the police anymore. They were scared of the spotlight. The mask was cracking, and I wasn't done yet, because the final piece of my plan was personal. They wanted the world to believe I was the villain. Fine, but they'd soon find out that the villain they created was smarter, calmer, and far more dangerous than they ever imagined. I never imagined I'd become the kind of person who plotted revenge. I always saw myself as the take the high road guy, the one who stays calm, turns the other cheek, avoids drama. But here's the thing. When someone burns the high road behind you and leaves you standing in the ashes, you don't walk, you rebuild. And if you're smart, you rebuild with bricks that fall exactly where they least expect. By the time my Medium article started gaining traction, I'd already drafted the second phase of my plan. Not out of pettiness, but out of necessity, because I knew my family wouldn't go quietly. I knew Zach wouldn't admit guilt. I knew my mother wouldn't apologize sincerely. And I knew that if I wanted real closure, not the kind you wait years for hoping someone has a change of heart, I had to create it. Within a week of the article going viral, the comments flooded in. Some people shared their own stories of family betrayal and theft. Others asked for advice. A few trolls told me to get over it or he's just a kid, but they were drowned out by the voices of support. The story struck a chord with people not just because of the theft, but because it mirrored a common ugly truth that some families will weaponize love as an excuse to never hold each other accountable. That's when I made the final move, the one that would ensure none of this got swept under the rug. I started with the truth bomb. Using the platform I'd built from the article, I made a follow-up post, a short, well-documented update titled, "Yes, my family tried to cover up the theft. Here's proof." This one included redacted screenshots of the emails between Zach and my mom. It had Lauren's statement, the message about the fake graduation gift, the Apple Store incident, even a screenshot of my mom's note at the bottom of the letter she sent me, the one saying not to tell Zach she wrote. Again, I kept it clean. No names, no addresses, but the implications were undeniable. I didn't need to scream it from the rooftops. I just needed to let the facts speak. It was enough. 3 days after the post went live, my mom called me. Not texted, not emailed, called. The name Mom lit up my phone screen like a curse. I let it ring. She called again 2 hours later, then again at midnight. Still, I didn't answer. On the fourth call, I finally picked up. There was a long pause on the other end before I heard her voice. "Aiden," she said, "please stop." It was a broken whisper when I almost didn't recognize. "I'm not spreading lies," I replied. "Everything I posted was true. You're humiliating us. Your brother can't even go to school without people whispering. You've destroyed our reputation." "No," I said calmly. "Zach did that. You did that. I just told the truth." She sniffled. "You don't understand what this is doing to our family. That's where you're wrong. I understand exactly what this is doing because I lived through it, and now you get to live with the consequences." She started to say something else, but I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her. I found out what happened next in pieces, mostly from Lauren and a few distant relatives who slowly started reaching out after the dust began to settle. Zach was pulled from school for a week due to personal family matters. In reality, he'd become a walking target. Not bullied, just exposed. Kids who once envied his flashy new gear started asking questions. Some teachers, those who had known me for years, quietly sided with the facts. It became clear that the golden boy had smudged his own shine. Then came the legal fallout. Despite my mom's desperate calls and attempts to retract her involvement, the police moved forward with the case. Juvenile court was different than adult court, sure, but it wasn't a slap on the wrist either. Not with the volume of evidence I provided. Zach was charged with felony-level identity theft and financial fraud. Since it was his first offense, the judge allowed for a diversion program, intensive probation restitution, community service, and mandatory counseling. But he didn't walk away clean. His record, though technically sealed, would still haunt him. He'd never get a security clearance job, never pass a background check without sweating, and he'd never be able to look me in the eye again. I didn't show up for the court date. I didn't need to. The silence of my absence was louder than any statement I could have made in person. My mom didn't get charged, at least not criminally, but the court made note of her involvement in the cover-up, and it made her a social pariah. According to Lauren, people started whispering at church. Her friends stopped inviting her to things. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid awkward conversations. The woman who once lectured me on reputation now had to live without one. I moved out of Dylan's place shortly after that, got my own apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, a one-bedroom with a tiny balcony and a view of a parking lot, but it was mine. More importantly, I finally launched my studio. I called it Pillar Design, a name that meant stability, strength, and what I had to become when my own family failed me. Business took off faster than I expected. The article buzz gave me a visibility boost. I landed clients from 3 different countries in the first 2 months. Started consulting for a nonprofit that helps young adults transition out of toxic homes. Even gave a few guest lectures over Zoom for college design students. I built something out of the wreckage, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. One night, I got a message from an unknown number. It was short, just 3 words. "I'm so sorry. No name, no follow-up." I didn't respond. I didn't block it either. I just let it sit there, a quiet echo of regret. Because by then, it didn't matter anymore. The revenge wasn't about destroying them. It wasn't about making them feel what I felt. It was about showing them what I wouldn't be anymore. Their scapegoat, their peacekeeper, their silent, forgiving doormat, they chose comfort over truth. I chose truth over them, and the truth set me free. I stood on my balcony that night watching the sun dip below the skyline. The city buzzed quietly beneath me, cars passing, lights flickering, life moving forward. I took a deep breath. The air was clean. The silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. I went back inside, shut the door behind me, and smiled. They took my money, but I took my life back.